You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. PM UTC makes it 9 AM on the Australian East Coast, at least in Queensland, and that's where David is. He's joining me yet again, or at least I think he is, somewhere.
I'm here.
He's here. And also in this hour, also in this hour's update, we're joined by Ryan too.
Hello.
Good evening to you. There's a lot going on. The latest headlines, the Idai death toll has risen again slightly, now responsible for 422 fatalities. It has dumped over 760 millimeters of rain over parts of Mozambique, and more news that the UK is going to send £6 million of aid to Malawi and to Mozambique. That's some information that has surfaced in the last hour, and if we get more news on the aftermath of Cyclone Idai, a terrible catastrophe for southeastern Africa, we'll bring it to you. News breaks pretty slowly at the minute, but a lot of news has come up today. Let's go straight to Cyclone Trevor though, because I'm sure that's what most people are here to hear about, but we will cover anything that you need us to cover. So if you want to get us to talk about something else, you can send a message to Force13, just tag Force13 in the YouTube comments section, and we will get to any questions that you've got. David, you're showing us the latest Bureau of Meteorology track forecast map.
Yes, the next update's in another 2 hours. Another 2 hours, 11 AM local time. So the big question is whether it's going to be a high range Cat 3 borderline 4. The media is starting to state that it's possibly could be borderline 4.
Yes, on the Australian scale. Now, some people in the comments section were having an interesting conversation earlier, talking about whether the eye size rivals that of Wilma's eye. Well, I can tell you no. The eye size at the minute is roughly 8 miles, whereas Wilma was, I think, 2. It is a pretty small eye, but not really the smallest by a little distance, but yeah, smaller than average. And it is approaching the Cape York Peninsula. David, any ETA on a landfall?
No, there's not till the next update, Nathan, but I reckon it's slowing. Just looking at the satellite imagery,
yeah, I agree.
that I've got on the screen.
In the last hour, it's moved 3 miles. It's not very far.
And I'm keeping an eye on the Reaper 256 loop. So I reckon the picture.
Could you show us that, please? Earlier on, we caught the International Space Station. It captured the storm. That was first thing this morning, just after 7 o'clock Eastern Australian Standard Time. That video is now on our YouTube channel, and I assume it's also on Facebook too, David, so people can go check that out. Yes,
I have posted a link to it on Facebook, and we appreciate the support to the Facebook page. But Nathan, I'm going to indicate that I might the streaming on the Facebook page could stop which would allow me to simulcast this one onto the AU
Yeah, it's
channel.
a difficult thing, isn't it?
It is. I've got the
We haven't got enough streamers.
It is true, but I
Just
could
so much
fire
going
up
on.
the laptop, and then if the wife comes in and watches TV, she's going to say, "What's happened to the TV signal? It's frozen."
Oh
But
dear.
what I'm indicating to the viewers is that if the Facebook page stream does stop, there's a high possibility that it will come back on, so it'll probably be chopping and changing. But Nathan, as I mentioned, I will be keeping a close eye on the Reaper radar. I reckon by midday, about 3 hours from now, the picture will become clearer. But you can clearly see that the rain bands are starting to impact the coastline, but looking at where the eye is, I don't think it's really moved that much. I thought it might have been a little bit further west.
I think what we'll do in this hour's update, because, you know, we're doing maybe a little bit of a unfamiliar format, but at the minute we're doing pretty short updates here on the channel every hour, but I'm not sure if we'll stay on for this hour or something, because we've got a few people showing imagery now. There's Isaac's screen. He can't talk, to my knowledge, this hour, but you can see what he's bringing up. More imagery and radar and satellite. And that's another look at Trevor. What
Nathan,
I do want to do this time around, though, David, is get to some models, shall we? I've got the model pages here,
Yes.
and we can go and do that. Unfortunately, you guys won't be able to know what I'm talking about unless, you know, you'll have to pick up on what I'm saying. But shall we do that? Okay, then let's do that.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And Nathan, I'd just like to ask. So much going on. Somebody on Facebook would like to
About
know,
Mauritius.
Yes.
We'll get onto that in the models. We'll get onto Mauritius. So we're going to cover all the world areas. The first place that we've got here is, of course, the Australian region. We're looking at both these systems. This is the 18Z GFS model run, which is initialized Trevor at 971 millibars, which is not too far away from the truth, I should think. And 95, it is 95S, isn't it, at 1004 millibars over there on the western side of Australia. And you'll notice that that one develops as well as we get into this model loop. So not much more strengthening, maybe a little bit actually. 961 on the GFS there for Trevor before its first landfall. Weakens to, yeah, borderline category 1 on the Saffir-Simpson scale. What becomes Veronica on the western coast there, rapidly intensifying, as well as Trevor the second time round. Trevor heading towards the coast of the Gulf of Carpentaria. Looks like category 4 on the Saffir-Simpson scale for the landfall. Moves inland, and Veronica's a bit slower and weakens a bit before landfall, perhaps a category 3 landfall on the Saffir-Simpson scale there, and then moves inland as well. And Trevor gets trapped, and the GFS has been calling for this for quite a while. It's quite long range, but it has been pretty consistent. The remnants of Trevor do survive and end up somewhere around the Gulf of Carpentaria. I'm not sure if that could still be Trevor there, but that could be one that lives on long after its landfall as well. So that's a quick look from the GFS there in Australia. ECMWF, let's see what we've got. This is the 12Z run from the ECMWF. So this is the analysis, and this is now the forecast, the landfall into the Gulf. Look at that rapid deepening for the ECMWF, 918 millibars. You don't often see that on the ECMWF model. That's quite clearly a category 5 on the Saffir-Simpson scale, which obviously means on the Australian scale too. As for 95S, it steers clear of the west coast of Australia a little bit. Maybe some, well, obviously you'll get some swells and maybe breezy winds, but peaking probably as a Category 3 off the western coast of Australia. And then everything dies by day 10. Let's see what else. Shall we have a look at the NavGem perhaps? The NavGem model has a big gap in it for some reason. I'm not sure if it's just because it's not up to date. Let's just take a look back at the 12Z and see what it's showing. Significant intensification before landfall in the Gulf. Both storms quite strong at landfall. Difficult to gauge exactly how strong because it's not as accurate on the NavGem. The Icon 18Z run on the Icon, which is the latest, again has significant intensification on both storms. Probably both at Category 3 on the Saffir-Simpson scale at landfall there. Trevor probably a Cat 4 on the Australian scale, and 95S could be a borderline Category 5 on the Australian scale according to the Icon model. So those are the scenarios for the Australian region, and in a moment we'll show you the next areas. What were your thoughts on what I've just been explaining there, if any? Have we lost everyone? You asleep? Nope.
No. Nope. I'm still here. I don't have any comments.
Okay.
Seems accurate to me.
Well, let's go and talk about this potential Mauritius threat. The GFS, first of all, there it is developing the system on the left-hand side there towards Madagascar, and it steers well clear of Mauritius, moves southeast instead, really becomes quite strong too, at least Category 4, gives Rodrigues a bit of a run for its money as well, passes just to the east, and then moves back out over open waters. So, bit of a non-event really if you follow the GFS, but you can see how different the ECMWF is on this one. Looks like a westward bias on a lot of the, I shouldn't say bias, more a westward solution for a lot of these storms according to the ECMWF, and it takes it uncomfortably close to Mauritius, this 93S, and off towards the south. Let's just, where can we get the pressure? Yep, at least a Category 3, possibly Category 4 going past Mauritius, and that is early next week, around Monday, Tuesday next week. So that is still quite far out. Let's just check the Icon again. This is by the end of the run, day 5, much further east, just east of Rodrigues, and it looks like it's just about to miss Rodrigues there as well on that curve. So that's another look at the South Indian Ocean. Now let's have a look. Okay, this is going to be the controversial one. Now let's take a look at what the South Atlantic is looking like in the next week and a bit.
Oh boy.
And see if it's still developing. You heard me right, the South Atlantic. See if it's still developing that tropical storm next week. Let's have a look. Let's see what happens. I've not seen this myself, so who knows what's going to come up here. We're looking for something off the coast of Brazil. There it is, forming. Nope, there it is. And really struggling now, actually. So it looks like nothing is going to form according to the latest GFS run. Very weak, but doesn't really get enough of an act together. Can we see the ECMWF for this area? It also picks up on the system and actually does still develop it into a cyclone. You can see it quite clearly there. 1003 millibars. A weak subtropical or tropical depression, or perhaps a weak storm. Very interesting. So ECMWF still has it midweek next week. So that's that. And finally, let's take a look at the Western Pacific if we can, and see what's on tap for that region, because models have been flip-flopping on that one too. Of course, we have not only 3W but 96W as well, which is near Chuuk in Micronesia. We're going to get that imagery just in a moment here. Go do a bit more clicking. If you've got any thoughts about these models, send in your messages on the chat if you're watching us live. Okay, so this is the GFS. Of course, you can see 3W there. In 6 hours' time, it is expected to be on the western coast of Mindanao. Will continue towards the west, lose its identity really, and its remnants will end up in Vietnam. And then this next system, does it do anything at all? Doesn't look like it. Very long range, it has something, but not really to be taken seriously. So the ECMWF doesn't appear to be showing anything either, only a few frames loading at the minute. Okay, so the first system there was 3W and then nothing else after that. So it looks like nothing's going to come of the Western Pacific disturbances. So I think that really covers all of the models. And just there, that's a phase diagram, an earlier one showing that South Atlantic system. But the GFS has gone cold on that one now, and only the ECMWF is backing it. Any thoughts on that? Okay, let's move on.
Not really.
Here's the latest imagery on Trevor. Trevor is continuing to edge towards the coast in this hour. And let's take a look now. Latest point has it 48 miles off the eastern coast of Queensland. We did have a question there, I think. I think the North Atlantic hurricane season will be above average. Do you agree?
Bit too early to tell. So I don't really know. I mean, once we get to April, like a few weeks, and maybe we can have somewhat of an answer. For now, it's just we don't really know yet. We're really gonna have to see how this El Nino plays out. You know, you're gonna really have to wait until the season really starts to get going until you can really tell for sure. So that's just me.
Ryan, what do you think of the Eyewall structure of Trevor right now? Struggling a little bit.
Yeah, it is struggling a little bit, but
do you think it's still intensifying overall?
Yeah, it looks like it's still. Yeah, it looks like it's like still trying to get an eyewall to going. It doesn't look like it's like not intensifying right now.
And there again, we can see it on Isaac's screen now on the left-hand side. It's on radar and is continuing to draw nearer towards land. David, have you got the latest warning information for us? Is he even here? We've not heard from him for about 15 minutes now.
Hello?
Hello? Is that Isaac?
Can you hear me
Isaac
good?
is here?
Yep,
I'm
we
on
got
my
you.
laptop, so I don't know if my audio is good or not. Is it good?
Fine, go ahead.
Okay. Here's the radar of Cyclone, I already forgot the name of it.
Trevor.
Trevor, yeah, Trevor. Cyclone Trevor, as it approaches, looks like towards Lockhart River, Australia. And on my right here, I have some visible imagery, close-up visible imagery of the eye. You can see the eye is not the best right now, and it can kind of make out why, because it seems to have two concentric eye walls here.
Yes.
On radar as it heads closer into the frame here.
You're right.
Go ahead. Oh, and then if you look at the IR here, mesoscale IR, you can see the eye having a little bit of a struggle here in the past few frames. I haven't been able to look at microwave, so I don't know if microwave's telling a different story, or if it's trying to get its act together or not. I'm assuming it is. But it should cross over this peninsula of land soon and then move out to sea, I think on Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But I haven't been too much to the storm.
Now, 2 hours ago, the Joint Typhoon Warning Center ran with 105 miles per hour, 170 kilometers per hour for their intensity. Do you guys agree with that? Or do you agree with me that it jumped the gun a little bit?
I mean, now that I look at it, I think it jumped the gun just a little bit. But, Yeah.
I would say maybe 90 miles an hour, in my personal opinion.
Well, that's what we've gone with at the minute.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say about 90.
Definitely looks more like 90 to me.
Well,
Yeah.
I would say it looks like 105 miles an hour, but only in the last hour, and that's not enough time to base your estimate off.
Yeah.
Yeah, no
So
problem there.
what I'm basically saying is I'll agree with the JTWC if it still looks the same in an hour. It's just that I don't know what it is or whether they've got some other evidence, but you know, when we watch this rapid scan imagery, and I've made this point already today, you know, it's so easy to say, oh look, the eye has popped out in the last hour, it must be 150 miles an hour now, when you know, you've got to evaluate the last few hours, and the reason why is to be consistent with what we've seen in history, I suppose. I mean, it's, I don't know how science is going to go when we're going to get even more accurate with these storms, and because previously we did our satellite estimates based on 3-hour imagery sometimes, or 1-hour imagery, and now it's every 2 minutes or 1 minute in some areas.
Even
30
one day back
seconds.
in the, even one day back in the 70s, if one day imagery or twice a day imagery was lucky sometimes, because some areas only got synoptic imagery. But yeah, I could see what you're saying here.
Well,
about,
I mean, you know, in the Atlantic area, they had, I think, at least 1-hour imagery since ATS.
But going back on the Trevor here, yeah, I could definitely see, because on the IR, the eyes has been kind of coming in and coming out. It's kind of just, I don't know what you would call it. I lost the word for it, but it just keeps coming in and out. I totally forgot the word to call that, but certainly the eye is not having the best of times here, trying to come out. And you can see on the radar, those concentric eye walls. I'm assuming that's probably what's kind of holding it back a little bit. If it didn't have that, it'll probably be on its way to, you know, strengthen even more. But since it has those concentric eye walls, unless those go away, I don't see it strengthening too much before landfall. But then again, but we'll just see over the next 3 hours here as it starts to slowly make its way towards land here.
This storm could deliver 600 millimeters of rainfall to the eastern part of the Cape York Peninsula, which could be quite troubling for that area, and other places suffering from flooding at the minute, or potential flooding. In Mindanao, there could be 300 millimeters of rain from Tropical Depression 3W, local name Chedeng, and of course we've got the continuing disaster that's occurring in southeastern Africa, where we believe now 422 are killed, and that number expected to continue to rise. The news in the last hour: the UK is sending £6 million worth of international aid. So the latest on Trevor. Let me read out the warnings, if I can find them. Cyclone warning in effect for Orford Ness to Cape Flattery, extending across Cape York Peninsula to Pormpuror to Mapoon, including Waipa, Lockhart River and Cohen, and a few other areas included as well that I'll read off here: Cape Keerweer and Cape Grenville, and also Cape Melville. So all of those areas will be affected by this storm. I must say the population along the peninsula in this area in the line of fire is very low, but of course people are going to have to be alert to the danger of this storm, which could cause widespread flooding and, I suppose, losses in the region. I imagine it's pretty big on agriculture.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, it's not really too populated around this general region, except, you know, a few cities like Lockhart. Well, not Lockhart River, but I don't know if that's actually a city or not. But we have Waipa over there. Then a few other cities is mainly sparsely populated, albeit there is some cities that may be in a line of fire with. Most of it's just fairly sparsely populated as compared to maybe southern southeastern Australia.
Mm-hmm.
So
And-
that's one bit of good news. Go ahead.
And the warnings in the Philippines look like this. A Signal 1 warning in effect for Davao Oriental, Compostela Valley, Davao del Sur, Davao City, General Santos City, Davao Occidental, southern portion of Davao del Norte, including Samal Island, the eastern portion of North and South Cotabato, the eastern portion of Sarangani, and the eastern portion of Sultan Kudarat. That means winds of 30 to 60 kilometers per hour is to be expected in those areas, and of course that torrential rain. So I'm still looking at the imagery. What has happened in the last hour here? Because it had a very brief, nice looking eye. You can see it on your screen there. And in the last few frames, I don't know what to make of it. It's looking pretty ragged.
I don't know. I mean,
An
it's just hasn't done
expanding
its act
eye
yet.
and a sizable hole in the northeastern side, another fracture in the western side. This is by no means, folks, is a complete eye wall, and it's difficult to award category 3 to anything that isn't a complete eye wall. If you were to get an average, it looks to me as though the cloud tops just aren't quite as good as they were. Especially if you look to that northwest band, they're waning as they get pushed away from the centre. Delivering significant amounts of rain over that area you would expect, though. Let's see if we can just get our hydro estimator. The imagery obviously is a bit more blocky, but it is interesting to look at this imagery because it can give you an idea of how much rainfall is falling. Green areas there are 5 millimeters per hour. Orange areas there, that's 20 millimeters per hour. And I'm trying to see what the worst colour is inland. I think it's just the red. And in that 1 pixel of red that you might see, that's 40 millimeters of rainfall per hour. And you can see one tiny area of black, well, a big area at the beginning there, on the southeastern side of the storm centre. That's 60 millimeters of rain per hour if it was in the same place. This is 15-minute imagery though, so I don't think anywhere near that will fall in these areas, but 5 millimeters per hour or more for a wide swathe of the storm's track. So that's just interesting to look at. Back to the more visually compelling imagery, which looks like this. And back to Isaac's screen, which also has the radar. Any more observations?
Not really, just that there's still concentric eyewalls here that I've been noting pretty much nearly since that it's first come onto view of radar late last night in my time.
We had more questions. Do you think 96W, 95S or 93S will develop?
93S.
95S is going to develop. And I think 93S is going to develop as well. Not immediately, but it will.
Is this one 93S right here? The
No,
one
that's 95.
95. Oh, of course. And
That's
then there's
falling.
Yeah, and then there's the one that's delivering a lot of rainfall towards the Philippines there.
96W probably won't form.
And that's the one right here, 96W, right?
Yeah.
And then of course you have Trevor down here forming. This is the wide view. I know you probably can't see too much, but it's just a wide view of what's going on here for most of the tropic system. More going on to the west out of the frame here. And then here's back to Trevor.
Well, there we are. And that there is the latest. We've also got Tropical Storm Savannah, which is dying in the central Indian Ocean too. Ryan, any comments on anything else? Because I think we're going to finish up here shortly and run back with the automated streaming service ahead of our next update in half an hour.
I got nothing to say really. I think everything has been said at this point. So just, you know, stay safe, be weather aware, that kind of thing.
Yes, especially if hopefully no one will be travelling with that storm approaching, and I hope everyone knows that it's coming.
Yeah. Fortunately, not everyone probably even knows that this is happening right now, so that's the other thing that's pretty unnerving to me, is just the amount of people that aren't aware of what's going on around them, and you know, it's just kind of dangerous.
Indeed. Well, we'll leave you with these graphics once again. We'll be back with another hourly update at midnight UTC. That's in half an hour's time. Stay tuned for more, and please share this stream with those who need to know the latest as well. And yeah, we'll be back soon. Stay tuned.